one. Or maybe maybe you don't need people to search for you at all. Maybe people find you because they come from a referral. So what you need on your website is lots of information about your customers' experiences with you. And so that does nothing to do with search engine optimization. So that's why this job description is really important. What do you need the website to do for you? One of the tools that I use all the time, and for those of you who have been on any of my seminars before, you might have seen this graphic before, but this is something that I use all the time, this purchasing process. And as consumers, we go through this all the time. We identify that we need something. We look around we set some criteria for ourselves. What problem do we have? What will solve it? We compare options, we make a decision, and we purchase the solution, and then we use it. And that might lead us into another purchasing cycle. But a website can help you move customers from one section to the next by giving them the information that they need. And especially for brand new businesses, that need identification is the critical one. I'm trying to think of an example right off the top of my head. Well, just as an example, I'll just run through this. Say you need to have lunch. Well, my stomach is rumbling. I need to have lunch. It's 12 o'clock. I need to have lunch. So then what are your criteria? My criteria are it has to have takeout or delivery. It has to be a certain price. I'm gluten-free, whatever the criteria are. Then you look around for the options. When you're really hungry, the options might be fairly limited. I need something close by or that delivers fast or has a drive-through in the area that I'm in. So maybe you don't have a lot of options. But once you compare, maybe you say, okay, well, I ate at such and such restaurant and that was really good last time. It met all my needs. And so I'm going to go back there again. You make your decision, you purchase, and then you get your food, you eat it, and then you say, oh, wow, this was such amazing service. I need to call them again next time. So the next time you have a need, that comes to mind really quickly.
So Jill, if we just take Mary and her frozen chickpeas, is that what you said, Mary?
Fish.
Pea shoots. Pea shoots.
Pea shoots. Oh, pea shoots.
Yeah, pea shoots.
So, I mean, so that would be when she's doing the need identification. I mean, she wants to be talking about the health and benefits of her product, right?
Well, and that's a really good question, Sherilyn, because are you going out to find people who don't know anything about pea shoots, or are you wanting to talk to the people who already know about pea shoots and you don't have to sell them on the health benefits of it at all? You have to sell them more on, we're local, we're right here, our product is fresh, it's available. And again, are you talking to consumers who are putting this stuff in their salad or their smoothie, or are you talking to restaurants and grocery stores? Because a consumer might want to know, well, how long has this been on the shelf? Whereas a restaurant or a grocery store might want to know, is she a reliable supplier? And those are two very, very different questions. Mm-hmm. And the information that you would provide on a website to answer those questions would be very different, right? So that's where on a website situation, maybe you have something that separates those two audiences very quickly at the beginning of the website so that you can tell those different stories on the same website. Or some businesses will go with two different websites, right? So there's lots of solutions to those problems, but having one website that answers all those questions can be very confusing for the consumer or for the wholesaler. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great question, Sherilyn.
Well, I got an answer.
That is a really good question. I think when I work with clients, we work through this purchasing process for every customer that they have. So with Lorianne, just as an example with the t-shirts, maybe it's individual customers, but maybe it's groups or businesses that are looking for company uniforms or something like that. And so we would work through this with each of those customers groups, and then we would find the information that that group would need at every step of this purchasing process, which it's complicated, but then the more you know about this, the easier it can be to provide people with the information that they need. Because what marketing is, and your website is part of that, and so is advertising and other kinds of promotions, you want to grease this slide. You want to get people through this as quickly as possible and come through it knowing that you're the best person to solve their problem, or best business to solve their problem. And so when you can provide them with information when they need it and where they need it, then all of a sudden you're moving them more quickly through that process, and probably more in your favor. And I've got an example. My husband and I are gutting a 1917 farmhouse. I wouldn't recommend it for anything but during a pandemic. It's been a great project to get us out of the house. Besides that, I probably wouldn't have done this. Anyway, so now I'm to the point where I need a countertop, and it's not here in Saskatoon. I need it in another community. But how do I know who supplies countertop in other communities? I go to the web, right? So I'm going to be looking online. I'm going to look for something, someone who's a good supplier. I don't know anybody in those other communities, so I don't know if they've got countertop there. So how do I know if they're reliable suppliers, if they're good at what they do, if they measure properly? And so the website has been a good sales tool for those companies. But they also need to anticipate, what are the questions that I might have? What are the criteria? Well, we'll drive out into the country and measure your countertop for you. Perfect, because I don't live in the city and I need you to drive out in the country. So if you say that on the website, then that's anticipating a question that I have. And so then that helps me with my criteria. Oh, and then when you're comparing, make sure that you compare apples to apples, because we do all these wonderful things that make us better than the competition. And if the other competitor doesn't have that information on their website, I'll go, oh, wow, this company's checking all the boxes that I have, and even thinking of some that I didn't think about myself. And so they're helping me compare the options. Then in the decision to purchase, if they make that easy, especially for those of you with online purchasing, that purchasing process is super easy. That again will help people go through that process really quickly. And then afterward, if you need instructions on how to use our product, if you need recipes, if you need a community of people who are like-minded, we have all of that. We have it right here on our website. Click here and go to our Facebook page. Click here to get our newsletter with all of our recipes. Click here to do all these things. Like, that helps me use that product. And it also reminds me that this company that supplied me are a great company. So then when I need that thing again, oh, guess what? What's at the top of my mind? It's the last company that I bought from that really treated me well and gave me a solution to my problem. And so that's where your website, knowing what your website needs to do. If you are a brand new business or entering a brand new market, that need identification is going to be really important. That's where, you know, in Mary's example, what about pea shoots? What do I need pea shoots for? Why would I have pea shoots? Well, let's learn all about pea shoots and the nutritional value of it, et cetera, et cetera. If I'm a restaurant, I might be out looking for pea shoots. So you don't have to educate me on the value of pea shoots. Mary can go to those businesses that buy pea shoots, all the vegan restaurants in the province of Saskatchewan, and say, look, I am a reliable supplier. Here's some testimonial from some of my customers. Here's my production schedule. Here's how often you can expect product. Here's the quality of my product with lots of amazing product shots there. And here's how I deliver. Here's how often you get my product. I pick it and you get it within 20 hours or whatever it is. You know, all of that stuff is more important to a wholesale supplier, but they're not. They're out looking for that information. You don't have to tell them that pea shoots are the thing for them. So again, knowing where your website is going to factor in, when are people going to be looking for information and what kind of questions will they have, and really anticipating that can be very helpful. And how do you find that information? Ask customers. How did you find us? I signed up for something and I can't remember what it was. It was maybe a newsletter or something, and they wouldn't let me push OK and join the newsletter until I answered the question, how did you hear about us? Because they really wanted to know. So things like that, and even just asking customers, how did you start using pea shoots, or what made you interested in adding pea shoots to the menu or the recipe? Those are all really great questions. Does this make sense? Does anybody have questions about it? How am I doing for time? Oh, okay. All right. So what's next? Oh, I'm going to skip a couple slides because we already talked about this stuff. The idea of having a couple of different markets, the timeline might be different. If you're talking about consumers, our timeline as consumers is usually very short for making decisions, unless it's something big ticket, like which daycare to take your kid to, which house should I buy, which car should I buy. Those kind of big ticket purchases or high involvement purchases, high risk purchases can take a longer time. But now if you're a business and you're looking at some of these things, we have to consider the risk. So for a restaurant to source pea shoots from Mary versus somebody else, that's not really a high risk decision. We'll try it, but if you screw it up, we've got another supplier. Now, if there's no supplier that's close by that can offer good product, then leaving one supplier to go to the next, it is a high risk. So we have the timeline will depend on how risky that purchase is. As consumers, most of us make our own decisions. We might consult our husbands, sorry, Terry, but maybe we've already made up our mind and wow, this is all going to go down. But when you get into businesses, usually there's more than one person involved in the purchase. So if you're selling to businesses, you might find somebody who you can solve a problem for, but they need somebody else to write the check. Or maybe they need to consult with somebody else to get authority to purchase that product or service. So businesses especially, they usually involve more people. And sometimes that requires you on a website to have more information that might appeal to somebody else in the company. Like lots of companies that I work with that are businesses selling to other businesses, they require financial information. So this is a great solution. How much is it going to cost? And how much am I going to save down the road? But the user might have found this website and found this solution to their problem because it was just the most amazing solution and it was going to save them a ton of time. But talking about saving somebody time and saving somebody money, those are two different conversations. And so the websites have to provide that information so that you can have that conversation with different types of people in an organization. Yeah, and the information requirements are different. And we've talked a little bit about that. But again, the website has to consider that this might not be a instantaneous purchase if you're talking about, especially business to business, where there's more people involved. All right. People always buy from us when they see or hear something. To me, this is really important for you to help filter out what needs to go on your website. Asking this question. So when somebody buys from me because they see how this product works, that means that I need a video on my website. I need to show people. People always buy from us when they come to our store. They love the experience in our store. So then that means you need pictures of your store and you need video of your store. Help bring that experience to people through their computer. people always buy from us when their friends tell them that we have a great product or service. That means that you better have testimonials on there, people saying what a great product or service you offer, maybe even a link to your reviews on Google or something like that. Think about this for your specific business. And even again, going back to business or a wholesaler or you know, an organization buying your products, maybe they buy from you when they know about how reliable you are or how easy it is to implement your solution. So you don't even have to talk about the thing that you sell. You have to talk about what that thing does for people. So think about this of your own website. What is it, the thing that makes people want to say, oh yeah, I've got money here, take it. There was one business that I've been following because it's near my farmhouse and I love it because I can go shopping there now. It's a greenhouse, and greenhouses are, if you've ever been in a greenhouse in March, April, it's just like, it literally and figuratively a breath of fresh air, right? We walk into that greenhouse and just go, ah. But what if it's April and there's a global pandemic and nobody can come in and smell your fresh air, right? So what they did was they started doing videos. So they did at least once a week, they were doing videos. Okay, so let's take you through the greenhouse. Here's what the petunias look like now, but these are ones that we started early and this is what they're going to look like. So make sure you write down the name of this petunia. And they did these videos and they brought that experience to their customers. And a lot of it was on social media. I don't even know if they have a website, but that's a whole other question for another day. But they were bringing that experience to people. And I think that was, they had a great year this year. Actually, I was so happy to hear that because they worked really hard at answering this question. What do people need to buy from you? And then they gave that to people through their digital marketing. So really good question to consider when you're thinking about what do I need on my website? Any thoughts on this? Here's another thing to consider. This is an old adage. You're not selling what you're making, you're selling what it does. And the old story about this is about people going to somebody going to the hardware store and they need a drill bit. They don't really need a 1/2-inch drill bit. They need a 1/2-inch hole, right? The solution to the problem is the drill bit, but what they really want is the hole. And lots of you have businesses that have this kind of dilemma, I'd say. But even Lorianne, I'm thinking of your business with the shirts. You know, you're not selling a shirt because people can buy shirts everywhere, but you're buying a customized way of expressing yourself or sharing a story or showing connection with other people as a group. So that's different than selling a t-shirt.
Well, that's right. And on my website, I can't remember the book now. It's by Donald somebody. It's Making a Story Brand, I think it was called, okay, that I read. Yep. And so it was like you had to, like lots of businesses have mission statements and things like that, but you have to really pare it down to what are you doing? Why do you need to buy a cup from me? Or why do you need to buy a personalized t-shirt from me? And so my mission statement or my it's my hashtag on every post, and it's crafting happiness, right? Because if you buy something for me, you'll be happy. If you buy something for someone else, you make them happy, and then it makes you happy, right? So crafting happiness is my tagline on everything, because that's actually what I'm doing. I'm making you happy with the t-shirt or the mug or the pop socket, but I'm also making, if you're buying that for your sister or your best friend or whatever, a cup that has something horribly, you know, not G-rated on it. I mean, it makes them so happy, right? And I just think that that's important. You have to tell the customer, I totally agree with you. You have to tell the customer what's in it for them. It's the happiness. That's what I'm selling. I'm not selling cups and t-shirts and things like that. I'm selling that feeling that you get when you receive something from me, or when you purchase something from me, or when someone else receives something from me. It's that happiness. And that book absolutely changed my whole marketing way. And it was really quite good. And I first listened to it as an audiobook on the Sauter, and then I actually purchased the book because it had lots of worksheets and things like that.
You needed to write it.
I did. I needed to go through and do it. So it is very good. And I totally agree with you. You have to find the whole. You have to find the solution to the whole. That's exactly it. So yeah, it's not a cup, because anybody can make a cup. Anybody can make a t-shirt. Lots of people do, but mine are special because of this happiness, right?
Yeah. And I think it's important, like, I'm just thinking of Mary's example with the fish. Like, you're not selling what you're making, you're selling what it does, but it does different things for a restaurant than it does for an individual consumer. And we have to be able to tell that story in different ways. And one of the biggest mistakes that I find businesses make is they try to tell that story for different customers in one tool. So whether it's an ad or a website or a social media feed, and it's not hitting the mark with either audience. I would say that probably Mary, I'm using your business as an example. I hope you don't mind. But fish as something that I feed my family, that's a whole different conversation. That's really one that would be great on social media. Sharing recipes, sharing pictures of happy people sitting around the table, sharing some wonderful fish, pictures of a fish fry in the summer. That's very different from how reliable as a supplier I am, and the quality of my product and the production process. That's a story that's great on a website. It also might be great in a brochure or something like that you would hand out or send with your product at a trade show or something like that. We will have trade shows someday. I realize that's not something we talk about right now, but I'm hopeful. But yeah, I think that there's having different types of organizations or customers that you're appealing to. You do different things for them. Your products and services bring different benefits. And I think that it's really important to consider that. And what I find is that too many people abdicate the responsibility of figuring that out to some kid who's programming their website, and they don't have experience, they don't have the passion, they don't know the backstory, they don't have interactions with customers. You're the one who tells that story, and you're the one who makes that connection for your customers. And that's why it's super important that you don't just abdicate this whole website to somebody else. Even here's an example. I was working with a client on their website. It was sorely in need of an update because it didn't speak to the customers that they wanted to attract. And we found a bunch of photos. Some of them were amazing. Some of them were not talking about the kind of experience that they wanted their customers to have. It was a fishing camp. And one of the pictures that they had was a group, and they were in the boat without life jackets. And that may be the way that lots of people fish, but as a responsible business who was trying to communicate with families and talk to families about a safe family experience, you couldn't post a picture of people not wearing life jackets. It was sending the wrong message. And if you just said, here's access to a Dropbox file with thousands of pictures, you pick whatever you think looks good with the colors on my website, they would have got that picture that didn't represent what they wanted to say. And again, that's why it's super important that you have ownership over this website and you steer the ship. You can't let somebody else do it just because they can do the button pushing. All right. I just want to, we're almost at our time here. I want to leave some time for questions, but I always like to encourage people to start where you are. Like if you have a website that you can't afford to change right now, that's fine. If you don't have a website and you know you need to get one soon, that's fine. Like start with what you have. If you don't have one right now, or you've got one, it's not working for you, start to figure out, answer all these questions, start gathering up photos, getting customer testimonials, take ownership of your Google listing and start getting people to do reviews on your Google listing. Use what you have right now. So you can't afford to do professional product shots, that's fine. Don't do them. Figure out how you can do them yourself and do the best ones that you can do, and use that. Or even just get all the photos that you have and organize them somehow so that somebody else might be able to use them in the future. And do what you can right now. Sometimes it's, you don't have time, you don't have the money to update a website or create a new website. Do what you can, you know, start your social media feed and get it up and running and get things working on that. Get a brochure together, and that'll help you answer a lot of the questions that you need to answer to get a good website together. Start asking customers, how did you find us? Do you look online? Are there other supplier websites that I should be looking at? Just start asking those questions. So you don't have to go out tomorrow and recreate your website. Maybe you can just start small and start working on some of the homework to get to that point.
I'd like to make a suggestion too. If you do have a website already, just going back and looking at your own website and asking the questions. What is this website doing for me? And if you can't answer it, then you already know that you've got to do something to clean it up.
Yep.
Right. And I just, so I have a question, probably for Jenny. Did these, and probably for you, Jill, did these slides get sent out to the participants?
No, but we will, right? I see Jessica nodding, but yes, we always send them out after.
Okay, good.
Sorry. Just a quick question for Jill. You didn't really touch on it, but just do you have sort of what analytics you should be paying attention to? Is there something that we really should be looking at with our website traffic or anything like that?
One that I really look for is bounce rate. Just because, especially with localized businesses, if you're getting a lot of connection from people who see your website and bounce right away, they're not interested. That tells me that there's maybe something that you need to do to attract that local audience. The other one that I look at is how did people get there and what search terms did they use? So those words are like gold. If you can find them, the words that people like to use, and then start using them in your marketing materials, that can really help. Those are two that I really look at. The other one is traffic. When do people look at your site? Because lots of people will find that their websites are Monday to Friday websites, and that doesn't matter if it's a consumer or a business. Sometimes people just, for that product or service that you have, it might just be a Monday to Friday thing. Other people, it's all over the map, and that gives you some good indications for things like when to send a newsletter, when to post on social, things like that. So those are probably my top three.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. You talked a lot about professional photos and just the availability, because hiring a professional photographer can be quite expensive. We have an upcoming webinar here in a few weeks that is, it's from a photographer that I know, Tammy Zadunik, and she's the owner of, well, she runs the Well Collaborative. Anyway, she's an amazing photographer, and she's doing a session with us, just walking you through taking photos and videos just using your phone, and just recommending, like, you know, different lights that you could purchase for not very much money, and just set up different apps on your phone, because it is accessible. to create nice images just using the technology that you have. And also she will be touching on, and I know Jill, you've touched on this before, but video is so key because people watch video. And so Tammy will also be walking through, you know, creating videos that are usable for your website and for social media. So I just wanted to do a little self-plug there because I think it will be a great session and something hands-on that we can use. Yeah, but
yeah,
thank you for
and that answering that question, when people see this, they buy or they want to buy, that's so critical. And I know that the three of you anyway, I don't know Terry's business, but Mary and Lorianne and Kyla, you have product to show. And if people see that thing, then to me, product shots are super important. And then an opportunity for you to tell a story behind that. I did one of my first videos where I'm up front and it was scary, but this other lady who owns a consulting practice, she inspired me. But you know, being able to tell those stories and you know, what was in it for the customer and what was the journey that got you from, you know, your first contact with the customer to having a super excited customer at the end of their journey. Though some of those stories are the things that build your brand, and Lorianne, maybe that's what you read in that book, but the stories that you tell, especially now with local businesses being so important to people. Yeah. Thank goodness, like one good thing that comes out of a pandemic is people start looking locally for things. For sure. And I think that being able to tell your stories and being in front of the camera as opposed to just taking a photo of a product shot, that can be really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Like even for you, Mary, to have a video of you in the Sauter talking about your product, that whole start to end and just even about you and your family, to me, that would draw me in 100%. And I don't think I'm unique to that. I think that you would draw a lot of people in.
Well, and I'm thinking of even video as, you know, like the difference between what a consumer wants to know versus what, say, a restaurant or a grocery store might want to know. Like the people are interested in that production process now more so than they ever have been. In the 50s, we just pulled the can off the grocery store shelf and opened it up and we were happy. But now people want to see where things come from. And I know, Kyla, like your creative process to get to the product that you have in the end, like for teachers' gifts. I remember you before Christmas, you were talking about teacher gifts. Well, that season's going to come up again here in September, right? And showing the product that you've made and telling the story about, you know, some kid's experience and he really loved his teacher, but he didn't know what to get them. Those are all amazing stories that people love to hear, and starting to share that creative process can be really helpful in drawing people in and getting them to be part of your community.
For sure. Or interviewing some of the kids and having them do the testimonial, right? And it pulls at people's heartstrings. Oh, well, that's pretty fun, you know.
Yeah, good. Any other questions? We're at past 2:30 here.
But yeah, does anybody have any other questions for Jill? All right. If not, I'd just like to thank Jill, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. That was been